I appreciate you guys letting me come speak. I come from a history in the padded show horse world. Of course, I never thought that we sold horses. I always thought our horses were just show ready. That's kind of the mentality we have. And, we look at the USDA and the inspectors like they regulate us more than they do anybody else, and what's wrong with us because our horses are just show ready. Never occurred to me growing up through the years that all the stuff that we did to them was wrong. It just really didn't seem that wrong. About 8 years ago, I was at a natural horsemanship clinic in Decatur, Alabama, and the clinician was going to do a shoot for a video that they were going to put on RFD TV. And the horse that he was going to use was an American Mustang that had been adopted, and the horse had a little something wrong with it, they said. About every maybe 30th step, he might take a soft step, but he didn't appear to be lame. But the clinician, there was no way under the shining sun, he was going to do a TV spot with that horse because he would take a soft step, maybe every 30th or 45th step. And I thought to myself, if that right there would keep him from being able to utilize that horse with his natural horsemanship presentation, we got a lot of trouble where I come from. Because at home we work on teaching them to lead. We part of the training is if you're not doing something to them to enhance the gait, you're working on their feet to keep them clean enough to get through inspection. And it has cleaned up some. I'm 46 years old and grew up in the industry. And it's changed quite a bit. I give everybody credit because they have absolutely pulled out all the stops to make it better. But the point of the matter is that horse isn't going to do the step they like in the show ring without having something done to it. Even if it's Gojo or kerosene, it's that in conjunction with the shoe and with the chain to get that reaction. There's no other way to put it. You can be compliant when you get to the horse show if you start early enough and you get the horse to remember what you did to him. So a lot of people's mentality is my horse isn't sore because I've not done anything to him since Monday and it's Saturday. So how can he be sore? But if you do enough to him, a lot of them, the real smart ones, they remember it because they don't want you going back to them again. So I spent the last 10 years trying to figure out where I fit in all this because I love the Tennessee walking horse and nothing to do but go to Shelbyville 3 or 4 times a year. It's just a whole different world up there and the people and all that kind of stuff. But then you stop and you think all the stuff that's acceptable that you see go on. And I have a daughter that's 15 years old. And I got to thinking to myself, now how am I going to explain all this to her one day when she starts doing stuff that's not completely on the up and up? And how am I going to tell her that's wrong when that's the example that I've set for her? So I went through a process. Of course, those of you here that knew my mother knew she championed for this horse. And she tried to do it in an arena where she could bring all the facets together and save the show type horse, but I just don't see any way that it's going to happen. And she didn't either. The only reason she didn't go farther with what she was doing is because of me. I was still training padded show horses, and I had a farm to pay for, and I had a daughter to raise. It took Mom dying and me going to her. She died on a Sunday morning. And I got in the car and I drove first to the hospital where she had been, and then I drove on to her house and was going through her stuff, and it was unbelievable the amount of stuff that she had. The amount of statistics she had on me and every single one of my friends that make our living showing these horses. And it came full circle right there because she had spent her life being a champion for the horse and not the people. Lots of personalities, and those of you that knew Mother, she'd fight a circle saw for the horse. So I made a decision last year that I was going to do something completely different. So I got out of the padded training business and started looking at other avenues. In the meantime, I had been following some stuff that Marty had been saying and really agreed with everything that Marty had to say, and really felt sorry for Marty because of the attacks that he had gotten. And because I knew Marty was telling the truth. And I can tell you now, Marty's told the complete truth because I told the complete truth when I wrote the letter I did to Representative Whitfield, and not a single person has called me and said, "Carl, you've not told the truth," because everybody knows that I'm telling the truth about it. So where do we go from here? There's a lot of stuff that's going to have to be done. We're going to have to teach a bunch of people that love this animal how to train this animal and train it in a way that's friendly to the animal. Going to have to teach the horses how to carry themselves different and the people how to carry the horse different. You look back over 46 years. I found it ironic a while ago when Clay said he was 46 years old and he had to start completely over. And I turned 46 in December, just a few days before I wrote the letter that I did to Representative Whitfield. And that was extremely ironic to me that it happened that way. And I'm having to, here at 46 years old, just completely reinvent myself. This is a great animal. It's been a great animal. Didn't realize how great this animal was till I had to start training the horse from the horse's perspective. I always train from a response perspective instead of a communication perspective. And once you realize that the horse has a say in what goes on with him, he'll give you everything you ask for. So just looking back through the years, you blame the trainers and you blame the industry, but I have to ride the fence on that because what Clay said a while ago, made a lot of sense. I was born into it. I never knew any difference until I started training horses on my own and moved away from home. I thought that was the norm. I thought that was just how you had to do things, and making a living and providing for a family is a key thing. I've had to give up a lot, but I don't regret any of it. So if I had it to do all over again, I would completely do it the same way, except I would probably do it a little earlier, maybe even jump on my mother's bandwagon and tell her to go ahead and share some of the information she had. I see some familiar faces back there that she's real good friends with. Right before she died, she had been in communications with Research Triangle at Raleigh, trying to figure out how to get some funding federally for the Breeders Association, because she felt like that the stakeholders within the industry still, to some degree, had enough credibility and cared enough about the horse to champion for the horse and change what happens to him to be a show ring performer. But I just don't think that's going to happen. I'm a second generation trainer. My dad was a pretty good trainer, and I was pretty fair at it. I had a amateur world champion, amateur reserve world champion, and won several other ribbons at the celebration, several state championships. But I can tell you I never had a horse that would perform and win without having something done to its feet to respond to the pad and the chain. That's the bottom line. So that's pretty much, it in a nutshell. If anybody would like to ask any questions, I do my best to answer truthfully. Yes, ma'am.
I just have a question on whether you have any advice. I suspect that there will be other trainers and other horse handlers out there who are coming from where you came from.
Mm-hmm.
And I know from speaking to you off and on today, I'm very impressed, and I really feel like you have a strong future. But what's your advice for other people who are looking at a future without chemicals and chains and pressure shoeing? Where do they need to go to be able to stay with this sound and natural movement?
Natural horsemanship and classic dressage. And in classic dressage, all the appointments with the classic dressage horse teach this horse how to carry himself in a frame where he can balance himself. And you know, the gaited horse is unique, being a lateral gaited horse versus a diagonal gaited horse, but the appointments are just about basically the same. You move the backbone, you raise the rib cage, you want the horse to go long and low until he gets his back end engaged, and then you can raise the head. But you have to learn how to communicate with the animal first, and coming from the big lick world, communication is not a tool that's used very often, or wasn't used in my case. It was my way or the highway. So I had to go through a bunch of humiliating things to learn how to communicate, because when I started the natural horsemanship, I couldn't understand how a guy that had put an amateur and a horse in the big oval in Shelbyville and won a blue ribbon, how a little old 4-foot, 60-year-old grandma could kick my butt, making that horse move around her and her not have to do anything to him. So I had to learn humility, because the horse will teach you that. And if you really want to partner up with the horse, that's the avenue you've got to go down. And if you don't have humility, he is absolutely not going to do anything for you unless you force him.
Hi, Carl. Thank you for coming, sir. Just a couple questions. I'll just do two in one. With all your experience, do you feel that we can still find an exciting show horse that will make people hoop and holler? Can we find that horse in the 21st century?
I think we can, but we're going to have to get away from the mentality. And I'm just going to say this, and it's probably going to step on some toes, but you can go to the celebration ring the last Saturday night in August, and when the big class comes in, the horse that comes in the ring struggling the most is the one the crowd gets behind. We're going to have to change that mentality. And if you don't believe me, let one come in that ring that's up on his feet, moving free and looks good doing it. The crowd don't say anything, but let one come in struggling and straining, and the crowd goes crazy. And that mentality's completely got to change. So, you know, I've seen a few horses through the years. I had a mare that I showed years and years and years ago that was pretty good on pads and a 6-ounce chain at home, but she wouldn't. I mean, she would walk and use her legs, but she wouldn't go to the show ring and be competitive. So a little bit of lick's going to have to be given up on all fronts to make any of this viable. So, well, I guess that's it.